This is a demonstration of using the Agent SVN plugin with the Zeus IDE. The Agent SVN plugin allows the IDE to connect to Subversion to manage the source control. So to start with, you need a workspace, and you can create. There are several ways to create workspaces in Zeus. In this particular case, all I've done is imported a Visual Studio workspace. But you definitely need a workspace to use the source control, because the actual source control settings are attached to the workspace. So with a workspace, the next thing we need to do is actually configure the IDE to use Agent SVN. So if we go to the source control options, using the options source control options menu, we bring up the source control panel. And as you can see, Agent SVN is selected as the active source control. You can see that via the path there. And the source control is enabled, and we will automatically check out files on edit. So of course, naturally, you'll need to have installed the Agent SVN software. The next thing we need to do is actually bring up the Agent SVN configuration, and we can use this button to do that. And here we have the Agent SVN configuration details. Now, these are the stock standard ones, and I leave them as they are. There are more details on what they all mean in the help. But the one thing we'll do for now is we have to tell Agent SVN where the repository is, and this is this setting down here. So in this particular case, we're saying that the repository we're going to be using is a file protocol repository, and it's located in this folder. Now, if I actually bring up that folder in Explorer, we'll see that there's actually nothing there. This is that same folder. There is no actual repository there at this point in time. But if we apply the changes, Agent SVN will actually ask, do you wish to create a repository in that location? Now, naturally, if you're actually using an existing repository, that means you've got the settings wrong. But in this case, we'll let it create it because we actually want to set up a new repository. So if you're starting out with no repository, the first thing you need to decide is where you're going to store the repository, where you're going to define your repository, and which protocol you're going to use. In this particular example, we're just going to use the simplest protocol, which is the file protocol. But if you want to use HTTPS or one of the other protocols, you're going to have to set up a Subversion server. But using the file protocol, we don't need a server. So this is the simplest. And for now, we'll just use the local repository, local file protocol repository. So now if we go back to our Explorer, we can see it's actually created a repository. And I can use Tortoise SVN to browse that, and it will show me that there's nothing in that. It's basically an empty file. So we've now got an empty repository just ready to go. So that's good. So now we've basically told Zeus to use the Agent SVN plugin. We've set up the repository. We just apply those changes. So now to add this code to the repository, all we have to do is go to the workspace level and add to source control. Now here it's going to say these are the details. This is the project that's going to get added to the repository. Here is the location of the repository that it's going to be using, and this is just the local working folder. This is where it's going to create the working copy. So those details look right. That looks fine. It's now gone to the repository, found that doesn't exist, so it's now asking, do you want to add this to source control? And naturally, yes. So away it goes. It's giving us a check-in comment. So there we go. Give it a comment, and away it goes. It's now adding, as you can see in the status, it's adding the files to the repository. We can actually go back to the repo browser, and if we do a refresh on that, we can see that it's starting to add the files to the repository. This trunk option is a Subversion recommended practice, where you define your working trunk, and that was done through the configuration. You can change that to suit, but basically that's how you should do it, because then when you create branches, you branch off the trunk and so forth. But more details on that, you should read the Subversion document. But basically, it's implementing the standard Subversion practice. And as you can see, it's starting to add the files to the repository. Okay, and it looks like it's completed. So now from inside the IDE, we can use the source control options. And for example, we can show the history of this item. And naturally, this is the item that we just checked in. So now, for example, if I bring that up, it's currently not checked out. You can tell that by the read-only access on the files up in the caption. But let's say I do an edit change to it. It has now changed it to read-write, and it's checked the file out. And we can make a small change. So we can check that it's actually locked it out by going back to our repo browser. Note that we've got a child form.h file. So if we go back to the repo browser, refresh this screen, and we can see we've now got that file checked out. Naturally, we can also use the source control options again to do things like compare. So if I do a compare on this, show the difference, it's showing me that it's made a change. So, and again, I can either check that source control in, or I can undo the checkout, or whatever. But let's make a check-in. And again, if we go back to the repo browser, we'll refresh that screen. We can see the lock's gone. We can actually go back here and we can actually view the history for this particular item. Source control, show history. And there's our history. And we can even do a diff of the two items. And away we go. So that's basically, it's as simple as that. It's fairly easy to get it all working. You just have to install the Agent SVN software, create yourself a workspace, do a little bit of configuration, but basically it's as simple as that.